The inevitable has taken place as the Raptors are eliminated from playoff contention for the first time in 8 seasons, but a lot can happen in 8 years. Let's get into it. Welcome Raptors fans to Amateur Sports. This is the channel where you get NBA content with a focus on the Toronto Raptors at least 4 days a week. So if you like what you see from today's video and want more of myself talking about the Raptors in videos just like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below to show your support to the channel on our road to 3,000 subscribers. And as you heard in the intro, today we're talking about the playoff streak being finished, and the Raptors, with the Indiana Pacers victory over the Cavaliers yesterday, have been officially eliminated from playoff contention. I mean, the only contention they had was to get into the play-in tournament, where I don't even think the Raptors would have actually advanced beyond the play-in tournament to begin with. So we must now look towards a new season and a big offseason coming up to really get this team back where it's supposed to be, because 7 straight seasons of making the playoffs is quite the accomplishment for a very small market Toronto Raptors team, and winning an NBA championship within that playoff streak is even more extraordinary. Such a small market, such a disrespected organization, just based off of the country that they play in. The Toronto Raptors are continuously disrespected by the NBA, but they overcame a lot of the odds for that playoff streak and again to win the ultimate NBA championship. There are a lot of big market teams in the NBA, and just a lot of teams in general, who still have yet to win their first NBA championship, but the Raptors are a team who have accomplished that, and this season has just been an absolute disaster. I think that the pandemic has hit the Raptors harder than any team in the NBA, because the Raptors were rolling last season. They were the second best team in the NBA in terms of their record, and they get into the bubble where their star player is not himself, doesn't get any reps up during the lockdown, because some players, they just didn't have access to that. They didn't have access to a court, a place they could shoot around. Siakam was a player who fell into that category and ultimately should not have fallen off quite like he did. But yes, Siakam, because of some of his poor play. And you know what? The Raptors as a whole, you can blame them as a team, but if our best player, Siakam, shows up to play in that series, the Raptors probably don't lose to the Boston Celtics, seeing as they only narrowly lost, even with Siakam not playing particularly well. And you know what? I forgive Siakam. That's just a bad series. He's been a lot better this season. I'm looking forward to the future of Siakam. Don't take those words as too harsh of a criticism for Pascal Siakam, because you know, if you know me, you know how much I love my man, Spicy P. So with that in mind, the Raptors, they got hit hard by the pandemic last season. Then this season, it gets even worse. We have to play every single home game in Tampa Bay, where when there's a crowd, the crowd aren't even cheering usually for the Toronto Raptors. The Raptors start 2-8 off the back of a difficult offseason where they lost 2 of their centers, and then they fight back all the way to 17-17. And at one point, they were the 4 seed in the Eastern Conference. But then the pandemic gets its second hit on the Raptors, as 5 players, including 3 starters, get hit with health and safety protocols. Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam got an awful case of the virus, and it really took a toll on their health. They were out for 5 games, 5 straight losses. The momentum carried over, and when the players got back, they weren't healthy. Siakam lost 10 to 15 pounds, according to himself, was not himself for a little bit of time, and the Raptors ultimately cannot recover from the 5-game losing streak. They lose a lot more, and it's too late to revive this season. The Raptors ultimately decide to tank, and here we are now, eliminated from the playoffs. Hopefully next season the Raptors get back in their own building so they can actually start getting some wins behind their back, because every year, the past few years, they've been either the best or one of the best home teams in the NBA, and that contributes a lot to their record. But 7 straight seasons of making the playoffs is absolutely not something to be upset about. Obviously, very upset about not making the playoffs this year. I had the Raptors coming in as the 5 seed at the end of the season this year. Obviously, did not pan out, and I was wrong about how well I thought the Raptors were going to do this season. But, you know, with a lot of things going wrong, maybe I can be forgiven for having confidence in this team off the back of a 2 seed in the NBA performance last season. But regardless, 7 straight seasons for a small market team like the Toronto Raptors is absolutely extraordinary. I will say it again. And think about how far this Raptors team has come since that season. The Raptors were, at the start of the 2010s, the laughing stock of the NBA, and they just could not get wins. They just continued to lose and lose. It was such a losing culture built. And a lot of that really switched up when there was the hiring of Dwayne Casey and the trade that acquired Kyle Lowry, bringing him into this team. And the culture changed. The Raptors were all of a sudden a fun team, a team who shared the ball. Maybe didn't have the star players and the firepower, but they had a well-run team unit, orchestrated a lot by Kyle Lowry, DeMar DeRozan, and quite a bit of Jonas Valanciunas. They all of a sudden, in the 2013-2014 season, win the Atlantic Division and get themselves in the 3rd seed. And I remember this season very well. Like, who would have foreseen the Raptors turn around their fortunes and get all the way up to winning the Atlantic Division? It was very exciting to see. We roll into the playoffs. It's the first time in my life. Think about how far long ago this was. Think about where you were yourself in your life at this point. 2013-14, watching playoff basketball. This was the first time in my life I was appreciating watching NBA playoff basketball with the Toronto Raptors as participants. And you know what? Right before the playoffs, as you remember, Brooklyn were sitting in and around the 5 seed, but purposely lost a couple of games at the end of the season to get themselves to 6 seed because they wanted to play the Raptors in the first round. And, Raptors fans, we took that as a little bit of disrespect, and we wanted to show them up. Oh, you want to play us? Well, let's take them down. But ultimately, this is where the playoff streak started, and it started with a Game 7 loss to the Brooklyn Nets. Paul Pierce blocks Kyle Lowry at the buzzer to secure a 1-point win for the Brooklyn Nets. An absolutely heartbreaking moment in Game 7 for the Toronto Raptors. And you know what? I remember exactly where I was watching this moment. I remember exactly where I was, what I was doing when I watched this moment happen. And you know what? I watched the Raptors just years down the line in 2019 sitting in the exact same spot that I watched the heartbreaking loss to the Brooklyn Nets. I sat in the same spot as I watched that Toronto Raptors team take down the Golden State Warriors in 6 games in the NBA Final to secure their first NBA championship. The same spot I sat to watch Kawhi Leonard hit the Game 7 buzzer beater against the Philadelphia 76ers. A lot of bad moments and a lot of good moments over this 7-year stretch. Started with a lot of pain. Again, that Game 7 loss to the Brooklyn Nets, but we came so far to get to where we were. Game 7 loss to Brooklyn Nets. The following season, again, we're in the playoffs. We fall in 4 games. We get swept by the Washington Wizards. And then 3 years of LeBronto, a conference final and 2 conference semifinals. And, it led to pretty infamous for Raptors fans, an infamous press conference with DeMar DeRozan where he said, do one of you guys want to come guard LeBron? Do any of you guys know how to stop LeBron? And the answer is no. You can't really stop LeBron. The Raptors continued to running into him until they didn't. LeBron goes to the West and misses the playoffs. The Raptors, the East is for the taking, and a very difficult road to the final. They got to beat, Orlando wasn't that difficult, but losing Game 1, raise some eyebrows, and then taking down the 76ers, taking down the Milwaukee Bucks, both of whom thought they were the favorites going into that series, and then we go into the finals and win in 6 games. Ultimately, the streak didn't particularly end very well, losing to the Celtics in 7 games, but considering where this team was, a 3rd seed in the Eastern Conference with a team purposely losing games to try to match up with them in the playoffs, getting to an NBA championship and becoming a team, a dogged team on defense, that teams who face them, they don't really want to face them in the playoffs. And that was absolutely proven in the 76ers series and the Milwaukee Bucks series, because Joel Embiid, I'm sure he still thinks about the Kawhi and Marc Gasol doubles. And Giannis has even said in press conferences that sometimes when he's sleeping, he can still see the wall, the Gasol and Kawhi Leonard double team wall against him. These are things that they still think about, even 2 seasons removed of those events taking place. So the Raptors have significantly changed their outlook in the NBA, but how much of a change is that? Because the NBA continues to disrespect them with, rulings against them. They continue to disrespect them, with the health and safety protocols, where other teams get postponements and games off. The Raptors are forced to continue to play, and there's still the stigma against them in terms of a free agent destination that I think one day we will overcome, but it just doesn't seem like we are quite there yet to overcome that free agent stigma. But regardless of anything that has transpired, regardless of events that will transpire, Raptors fans appreciate this streak because, thinking about the time before this playoff streak, what the image of the Raptors were. The Craptors, the team who was always a bottom feeder in the NBA, a team, even though they were bottom feeders, didn't know how to draft, but now we've become a perennial team noted for how good their defense is. We've become known for our player development systems, our scouting systems, and our ability to draft, our ability to find diamonds in the rough year after year. And now with a great pick coming to us in this offseason, surely a great pick coming to us, anything in the top 10. Masai's worked wonders with picks in the 20 pluses, with OG Anunoby, with Pascal Siakam. He has worked wonders with his late picks, so imagine him with a first pick. I believe that, even though the streak ends this season, I think a new one starts next season. There is a very good core in place for this team, and there are big things coming. Siakam, just about to enter his prime. If you look at his age, you look at the type of players, probably about to enter his prime. OG Anunoby, nowhere near his prime. Locked in for 4 years after this year. Fred VanVleet, a guard who still has potential to be an all-star over the next few years. He's got 3 years left on his contract. There is a solid core in place, as well as whoever we end up getting in the draft. This core, I believe, will get us back to the playoffs next season, especially if we do have a home crowd behind our backs. I think that this team will be back in the playoffs next season. I think this season, they've shown the ability to compete with the best in the NBA. Just late game situations, clutch moments have let them down a lot, and momentum. A lot of things go wrong. But I think next season, the Raptors are able to right the ship and start a new streak. But in order to get that new streak started, there is work to do in this offseason to correct the mistakes that were made this season. And hopefully, a lot of things out of our control, like a pandemic, go our way. And I have faith that this team has big things on the way. So do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think the Raptors will make the playoffs next season? I want to hear all of your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. But that wraps it up for me for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you're still here, be sure to like the video if you like at any point to help us reach some new viewers, and follow us on Twitch, twitch.tv/amateursports. We're streaming live tonight for a watch along for the Raptors games. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Hit the button beside me just over here, and also check out some other videos by Amateur Sports. The most recent video on the channel, and maybe another video that you might like, is right there. At the end of the day, believe what I say. If you disagree, that is okay. We'll see you again next time for another video.